trying to accomplish online. So another thing, it's not on the screen, but I want you to think of it that when you find that insight, that aha moment, it has to be unexpected, but then once you see it, you're like, well, duh, of course, it needs to be obvious as well. So that's what we're kind of looking for within that data. So in order to try to, I know I'm speaking fairly hypothetically, so in order to really kind of bring this home, I'm actually going to use real people that I've met and that I know and that have a business. This is Tracy Noonan and her daughter Danielle Villagi. And they opened, I'll give you a little backstory. They're from Cohasset, Massachusetts, kind of near where I grew up. And they were trying to find some like mother-daughter bonding activities. If any of you have any ideas for that, please let me know. My 15-year-old thinks I'm the least cool human being on the planet and refuses to do anything with me. But Tracy figured out that her daughter, as a teenager, would take cooking classes, baking classes with her. And they did, and they really found something that they enjoyed doing together. And they started this little business in their kitchen, their home kitchen, making cupcakes, and it really took off. The business is called Wicked Good Cupcakes. But then they had an idea. So their business started to grow. So that started in 2011 for the business. And they started shipping the cupcakes. But the problem was that the cupcakes, it was hard to ship them. They didn't last very long. So they were trying to figure out a way to actually do this. So their big idea was to actually make cupcakes that could be packaged and sold in mason jars. And the advantage is that they're easy to pack, they could last for refrigeration without 10 days, and it was just easier to ship them. And they actually had an opportunity in 2013 to appear on Shark Tank, and all right, I'll be fair, I've only watched it once, but I kind of get the premise of Shark Tank. But anyway, something good happened, and someone like bought into their company, and now they sell like millions of cupcakes all around the United States. So they did well. They don't really have to make cupcakes much anymore. They just sit and watch the millions of cupcakes like these get made. So we teamed up with them, and they very graciously gave us access to their Google Analytics reports and some of the stories behind it. Now, you may not yet be selling millions of cupcakes after all your appearances on Shark Tank yet, but it can give you some ideas about how real small business that literally started in someone's kitchen can now use analytics to grow and thrive. So let's talk about how we're going to follow Wicked Good Cupcakes on this journey through analytics. So one thing, again, to reiterate, is that if you operate on gut instinct, it's generally a bad idea as far as making data-based decisions. If you have the data, you should use that first. I'm not saying that your gut instinct is wrong, but if you can have a report that really shows you, chances are you're going to get a more accurate result. And so here are examples of gut instincts. They tried a recipe, they loved it, and they just immediately replaced what they had on the menu with the new recipe. Until they actually test that recipe and see how it's received, see if people actually like it and they buy it, then they're really just basing that on, we think this is going to do well. Here's another one that I see all the time. And for those who were at my class last time, I've been working with advertising with Google for a long time. In the very beginnings, there wasn't really as much availability and data reporting for ad activity. It's gotten a lot, it's really transparent. You know that if you're spending money with Google Ads, you know exactly how much you spend and when and on what. But in the very beginning, when they were still rolling that out, it was a little bit of a black hole. You knew kind of how much you spent, but you didn't really know, you didn't have the information to see how much value it was bringing into the business. Well, a lot of business owners still operate like that, where sales are down, and the first thing they do is they say, oh, it must be the advertising platform. It must be that we're wasting money here, and they immediately make a cut. The thing is, you might be right, but you might not be. And with the now availability of these tools that you have, you can tell. You can figure out if it's because of something that's happening online, that your sales are down, that there's an issue. You have the data to figure that out. and then make a change that's appropriate. So you don't need to just slash a price or your advertising campaigns just because your sales are down. Now here is an example of how Wicked Good Cupcakes actually, this came into play for them. So when they got started, they made the assumption that their target demographic was women aged 35 to 55. And all of their marketing and their promotions, everything was geared to that particular demographic. But then when they started using Google Analytics and they had that data to more accurately show them who their customer was, if the customer typically was a woman, but it was a younger age group, it was 25 to 35 are their top customers. So what does that mean? It means that they're subtle, but there are changes in how you might market to a younger demographic. It might be, a different place with, different promotions based on the age of your family, the different types of websites that that particular age group might be visiting. So it's insights like that, even subtle ones, that can make an impact on your overall marketing strategy. And they were able to make an adjustment and then actually improve sales once they had that information. So what do we mean? Like, what's the definition of all this stuff? So what is data? So data is the numbers. That is the information that you're actually gathering from your users, like their demographics, the number of visits to their site, the behavior and activity on your site. And so again, we've got a ton of that. We all have access to lots and lots of data. Now, analytics is the software that we apply on top of that data that shows us the patterns and the trends within that data. So analytics is helping us make sense. Imagine this is like a big mountain of numbers, and then analytics is what you apply on top of that so you can figure out what those numbers actually mean. And where you come in, where you're not going to get that from the software, that's where you're looking and applying your logic, your ability to test on top of that to find those actionable insights. So those are the three types of things that we need to differentiate before we get into the class. So how do we actually do this? Do we have any data analysts in the room? Anyone? One. Yay! So you are a very valuable person in this room. Everyone's going to have to go find her after class. So we've got one person in the room who's like, I know what she's talking about. But for everybody else, if you're not in the numbers all day, again, you might look at these reports and be like, oh, okay, now what do I do? So I'm going to give you a suggested approach to actually figuring this out. And we'll do it in 3 ways. We'll look at goals, questions, and then reports. And that'll help give you some structure for actually taking something from this class and then doing something afterwards. So the first thing let's talk about is what are your goals? How many of you have an e-commerce website and sell something directly on your website? Very few of you, 2 of you. Everybody else in the room, if you don't sell directly on your website, you might, and very reasonably, might think to yourself, well, how am I going to do this? Because how can I track something if I don't, collect their credit card and complete a sale, a transaction right on the website? The first thing that you need to do is come up with an action